Hello and welcome to Jill HB and Friends. I'm Jill Harvey Bush, and today I'm talking to Serena Scroggins, who is a natural wellness and lifestyle coach. But Serena's actually going to be telling us her story of her breast implants and how they became toxic, and she actually then suffered quite badly from breast implant illness, which some of you may never have heard of. So there is a bit of a warning before you listen to this podcast. If you have breast implants or you're thinking of having them and actually don't want to hear her story, then I would suggest that you switch off now. However, if you would like to be fully informed, if you are thinking of having breast implants, or you know somebody who is maybe suffering from some sort of undiagnosed, unexplained illness, then by all means continue to listen to the podcast. Serena is also very honest about the reason that she had her implants put in the first place and the positive impact it's had not just on her health but on how she feels about herself having had her implants taken out. Serena, welcome to GillHB and Friends. Thank you so much for joining me. I think this is really important because so many people do not know about breast implant illness. And of course, it's not just women, it can be men as well. And with people transitioning, there's a whole raft of people this now affects. You've got quite a story, haven't you? Which is why I wanted to talk to you.
I have.
Would you like to start?
Okay, where do I start? At the beginning, I guess. It would be 23 years ago in April of this year. I didn't feel good about my body. I think I was about 20, I was 27 at the time, very, very thin, and I wanted a bit more shape. And, obviously at that age, I was looking externally for the ideal body, the 34, 24, 36, that was my thing. Okay. But I didn't have the boobs. So I made a decision under nobody pressured me into it. It was just my decision, did the research and, breast implants, they're safe. So decided to have breast implants. Honestly, I absolutely loved them. Loved them. Did it raise my self-esteem to an extent? Yes. But then, as the years went on, it was like, my self-esteem was up, was down. Yeah. And it was only until October 21 when I noticed a change in my health and I was becoming very fatigued. I'd had a busy summer. So I just put it down to that. And then over the Christmas period, just thought something just wasn't right. And then it was then in the January when I started to get really bad brain fog. And all I was thinking was, my gosh, this peri-menopause was kicking my butt. I was completely putting everything down to my age. So that,
which a lot of women do, don't they? You get to a certain age, you start to get symptoms, and you just, it's just the menopause, excuse me, perimenopause. It's just what I'm going through. Or loads of women describe the brain fog, or you feel fatigued, you feel like this, you feel like that. And easy to put it to one side, or I've had a busy year, oh, it's not this, or I've had, women are having children later, so therefore sometimes they're still up at night in their 40s, with babies and toddlers and young kids, etc., and put it down to that. I mean, interesting you say there was no pressure, so externally around you. I'm going to come back at you and say, actually, there's subliminal pressure, which we don't realize we're picking up from magazines, now social media, so even worse. And as a woman, well, not just a woman, but males as well, we pick up those images, don't we? Get bikini ready for the summer, and are you bikini ready, when all those adverts were around. And if you go back, as you say, 23 years, it was even more so, the pressure externally that was put on you through adverts and so on and so forth. So
thank you for picking up on that, because it wasn't, my partner at the time, there was no pressure from him. He was like quite happy with the way. So yes, but thank you for picking up on that, because it was, used to look at the magazines, and the fashion models and, and that was like, okay, the ideal body, what is the ideal body? And, I would literally see these models with, their shape and like, I want those boobs. So yeah, to your point, and that's what worries me obviously about today. We didn't have
Absolutely.
social media back then. I see people self-mutilating themselves because they don't feel good enough, and they think, oh, it's okay, it's so accessible, not even thinking about what they're putting in their bodies. Oh, this is going to make me feel better, and maybe for a period of time. But I've learned the hard way. It's like, no, it's for a period of time, possibly, and then after that, it's like you just, self-esteem doesn't come from, in my opinion, doesn't come from mutilating.
Absolutely. It's internal, not
Exactly.
external in terms of
Yeah.
self-esteem. So you went and had them, and like everybody else, everybody tells you, oh, it's safe, there's no problem, go ahead, they're perfectly safe. The experts will tell you, yes, it's perfectly safe. The consultants, will tell you, yes, that's fine. So you went and had them put in, you had your breast implants in, and then, as you say, you hit 50, and a year or so ago kind of thought, I just don't feel
Yes. Well,
right.
I'll actually
So I
be
bet
I'll
the
actually be
tests.
50 this coming May. So
Ah,
this
right.
is this is my birthday present, early birthday present to myself, was
To
having them
you.
removed because yes. So the beginning of last year, all the brain fog and just putting it down to peri-menopause, but my health was just deteriorating, and I didn't feel well. And I remember a friend of mine, I think it was in the spring, and I looked at them and I said. I don't feel well. And they said, what do you mean? And I said, I don't know. I said, I just don't feel well. And
Mm.
I couldn't describe it. It was just the fatigue, the brain fog. Just,
So like muscle aching, anything like that, sort of, or just
I
to say, just
I
general
was
fatigue for
noticing
you?
it was taking me longer to recover from any workouts I was doing in the gym. My
Mm.
anxiety was just going through the roof. I just couldn't make sense of how I was feeling. And it wasn't until I think it was about the May time, I was just scrolling on Instagram and came across a woman that I follow. She's in the US, and she was talking about having her breast implants removed. And I thought, oh, I'll just check out what she's, been going through. And I read the
Mm.
post, and all of a sudden it hit me. And I thought, my goodness, I'm like, I've got breast implants, which I know it sounds absolutely ridiculous, but I completely forgot because they've been in for so long. They look completely natural. I mean, I used to get praise going in. I lived in the States for many years. Um,
Mm.
the norm over there is every year you go and see your gynecologist and what have you. And even when I had my children, and the midwife and my gynecologist was like, oh my gosh, your boobs, oh, they look amazing, they look so natural, so I'm like, oh yeah, great. you know and then
Yeah.
coming over here, we don't have the checkups like you do in the States. But didn't even think, I'm a busy mom. Yeah, I mainly parent single-handedly. So, I'm trying to work, parent my kids, and all that comes with that, take care of a home, all that comes with that, So I was just completely forgot I had these implants. And then all of a sudden, reading this article, I was like, my goodness. And I thought, I was just like, this is me. And I was like, right, okay.
Mm.
And then I started to do a bit of research about, breast implants. And then she was talking, this woman had
Yeah.
breast implant illness. So I did a bit of research on that. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what on earth have you done? And I just stopped right in my tracks at that point and said, okay, right now, you need to be very kind to yourself. You cannot be questioning yourself what you did 22 years ago. Right now, you need to be kind, because I know, the effects of negative thoughts, the impact that has on our bodies.
Absolutely.
So I was like, okay, let's just relax. What's the next step? So I got in contact with the surgeon that put them in. And I said, okay, this is the situation. I haven't been feeling well for quite a few months now. I've had them in for 23 years, 22 years at the time. And I said, so,
Mm-hmm.
What's the procedure? And he's like, not a problem. Come down to the hospital. We'll do an ultrasound, see where you're at, and then we'll take it from there. So off I went, St. John and Elizabeth Hospital, and that was in June. Had an ultrasound, and they said, okay, your implants have ruptured. You have got silicone sitting in your lymph nodes. So they booked a consultation with my surgeon, who was, you know, my previous surgeon.
Mm-hmm.
And had a chat to him, and he's like, okay, come down, you know, we'll have a chat, we'll do an examination and everything. So which I did, and went down, and he sat there and he said, okay, you know, obviously I hadn't seen him for 20 plus years.
20
Yeah,
odd
so it's
years.
nice to, you know, have contact with him, you know, meet him again. And he said, okay, how's your health been? And I ran through all the symptoms I was having. My liver, that's one thing that became apparent in the new year as well. My liver was just a lot of discomfort in my liver, and I was having problems detoxing, which my friend picked up on. She's trained to be a naturopath, and she was doing an iridology assessment, which is where, you know, they read your eyes, look in the eyes and say, okay, this is what's going on. And she's like, you know, she said, there's something going on with your liver. Well, I turned around, I'm like, well, where's your liver? And she showed me where it was. And I'm like, my goodness, I said, that's been playing up for months. And I was kept poking it, thinking, oh, is it muscular? If I overstretch, what's going on? And she went, no, there's something going on with your liver. And this was before I knew I had breast implant illness. So there was that. And she said, you're having problems detoxing. So she recommended me that I go and see her Chinese medicine practitioner, which I did. And he told me, you know, you've got a lot of inflammation in your body that we need to get rid of. And I was flushing, you know, in my face, really just beet red, all of a sudden, just a lot of flushing. And so, you know,
which again, people would put down to being menopausal.
Worked with him for a while, you know, acupuncture and Chinese herbs. But then my health, you know, it was deteriorating. Found out I had breast implant illness and went to see my surgeon, my previous surgeon, and ran through all my health symptoms. And he's like, oh, okay, anything major going on? And I just
Whoa.
sat there and I was like, no. In my head, I was thinking, my goodness, did you not just hear what I said? I mean, there were days I was so poorly. I would literally, I mean, I was a get out of bed at 5:30, get up, I'd be on my bike, cycling to the river, going for a cold water swim, you know, like 6 a.m. in the morning. And then all of a sudden, all of that had to just stopped because I was struggling to get out of bed. And I was thinking, my gosh, he's just dismissed all my symptoms. But I'm like, no, okay, I'll just, you know, I think I was just thinking, well, okay, he's the doctor, you know.
He's the expert.
He's the expert. And I thought, okay, no, there's nothing major, even though there were days I was just crawling on my hands and knees because I felt so dreadful. Then he examined me. And he's like, right, okay, so we're replacing your implants. And I looked at him and I went, no. I said, did you not hear what I said? All the symptoms I'm having. And he's like, oh, okay. He said, well, he said, you can give your body a break for a couple of years, then come back and you can have them replaced. And I just sat there and I thought, in my head, I was swearing at him. And I said, oh, yeah. I said, thanks very much for letting me know that, you know, for saying that. And I was fuming. And then I was so desperate because I was so poorly. I'd been to A&E. There was one day I woke up and I thought I was dying. And I ran through one of my friends. She works she's an office manager at my doctor's office. So I called her and I said, look, this is how I'm feeling. Is there any way you can get me in to see a doctor today? And she said, look, I'm not working today. Let me speak to somebody at the surgery. So she spoke to one of the senior paramedics. And he said, given all her symptoms, I think she's got an infection. She needs to get to A&E. So I dropped my children off at school. I mean, I'm driving there just like, my goodness, I don't know how I'm doing this, in tears, just get myself to hospital. So I did that and I sat there. The wait was 10 hours, but it actually ended up only being 6. So I sat there and, you know, I was in tears one minute and then I was helping others sitting in the waiting room in tears, supporting them, which was good for me because I needed to take my mind exactly. You know, it was a really, considering how I was feeling, it was a really lovely experience to be support to other people. And they ran a bunch of tests. I went through all my symptoms. They ran a bunch of tests. They were checking my liver, my kidney, everything, because they thought I had sepsis. So they checked everything and everything's come back negative. You're fine. And I said to the doctor, and I said, I have breast implants. I said, they've ruptured. I said, so I know it's down to that. And he's like, oh, this has got nothing to do with your breast implant. And because of the research I'd done, and I thought, he's probably never even heard of breast implant illness. So I very, obviously very kindly said, look, thank you for your time, and then I just took myself off. But I knew exactly what was going on in my body.
But that's the scary bit, actually, Serena, isn't it? That they run all the tests and they actually can't find anything wrong. And I came across a client several years ago, which is when I first kind of knew about it. And she exactly the same, had run all the tests. She was private, and she went for this one and that scan and this scan. And in the end, they just said, no, I think you need to go and see a psychiatrist. We think this is mental. So you're imagining there's something going on, and so she was put onto antidepressants because she believed the experts. And it was really interesting, as you say, that she said, I literally feel like I'm going out my mind because they keep telling me there's nothing wrong, nothing is showing up. But again, it turned out to be her breast implants. I mean, hers hadn't ruptured, but they'd leaked, or as they can do apparently, and that was causing.
That's it. I actually came across one woman. She had 67 different tests done, and everything came back negative. So there isn't a test that can detect breast implant illness. It's just all these systemic symptoms women are having, and to your point, women are going to see a psychiatrist, they're going to see this type of doctor, this, and everything's coming back negative. And the amount of women that I've come across where they're like, no, it's in your head, and then they're getting put on medication. And then it's only then when they're coming across breast implant illness articles that they're like, oh my goodness. And even then they go back to their doctor saying, I think it's my breast implants. It's not your breast implants, and getting palmed off again. And, so it is about not just educating women, it's about educating the medical industry. Because my doctor, I ended up going to see my GP because I was so poorly and I was just so desperate. Because my original surgeon, he's like, okay, we'll get you booked in for explant surgery. And I'd done the research, and it's not just about having the implant taken out. That can be like a 15-minute operation, take that out, stitch you up, you're good to go. It's about removing the capsule as well, which is, the scar tissue that's incredibly built around this foreign object in our bodies to protect the rest of the body. So it's about removing the scar tissue, possibly at the same time. I mean, that's the ideal.
Because actually you can get capsulated contraction, can't you? Which is where I'd heard about it before. Obviously I came across you, where it's the tightening of the scar tissue, which then starts to pull. I've had breast cancer, so I've been on the other side, and even I, with the scar tissue that I've had inside, having been sliced inside, which you tend to forget, there's scar tissue in there. So I will often feel discomfort, is the way I would put it. If I've been overdoing it on my right side, then I can certainly feel that scar tissue kind of at work, if you want to. A lot of people, again, don't realize that the discomfort, or maybe the sense of burning or something like that they've got in their breasts, is from the scar tissue actually starting to tighten around the implant, which of course can create its own problems. And
I was fortunate, I didn't have that. So here's me not even having many symptoms until back in October 21. And my case was classed as a silent rupture, where who knows how long all of this I mean, I don't know. But so it's removing the capsules as well, because they're if you leave the capsules in, they can be contaminated, and women are still having breast implant illness purely because their capsules have been left in. Now, my surgeon, he told me, my original one told me that I've done the research, and I said, look, I'd like you to remove the capsules as well. And he's like, well, okay, well, I can. I'm a little bit reluctant because it can damage the breast tissue and what have you. And you've got to remember that scar tissue is just a normal part of your body. It's just something your body created. And I was thinking, okay, he's the expert. Okay, right. Okay, I understand what he's saying. He's the surgeon. I'm not. He knows, he's done this, goodness knows how many times. He knows what he's dealing with when he goes in to do implants and explants. So I thought, no, he's the expert. Obviously, I thought, oh gosh, how wonderful. He doesn't want to damage. He wants to preserve my breast tissue. This is me. He wants to preserve my breast tissue. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, that's really nice of him. God, the integrity. I was like, wonderful. So anyway, and then went and did some more research, and then the articles that were coming out about you have to remove the capsule. So I kept going backwards and forwards with him. I'm like, no, please, I just want all of the capsule, everything removed. I want a total capsulectomy. And he was not giving me a direct answer. I just wanted him to say, okay, yes, this is what I can do. Well, this is what I will do. But he was being very vague. And I thought, this isn't sitting right with me. But I was so desperate because I felt so unwell, and I'm having to look after my children as well, as work. And just, there were days I was just doing the bare minimum. I mean, my poor children. Can you just help me? I can't do all this myself. Yeah. So anyway, so I was booked in for surgery with him on the 27th of October. And it was the day after. I was in New York with my daughter for a few days. It was the day after we flew back. And I'm thinking, we got home I think it was about 3:00 in the afternoon. Then I would have to go travel. But I lived a couple of hours north of London. So go home, get a half decent night's sleep, having slept on a plane the night before, get myself together, travel back down to London to go in for surgery. And I thought, this doesn't seem right. I'm going to be jet lagged. I'm going to be dehydrated, even though I drink on the flight. It's an overnight flight. I thought I'm going to be dehydrated, more risk of DVT. So I spoke to him and I said, look, I'm flying from New York the day before. Is it really okay for me to come into surgery, the next day, given, long haul flight? Oh, yeah, not a problem. Yeah, no, that's fine. And I just thought, oh, my goodness. And my gut it was screaming at me. And I thought, do you know what? No, this does not feel right. As desperate as I was, I thought, you are the wrong person to be operating on me. So I ended up firing him, and then went doing some more research. And I'm part of a Facebook group, Breast Implant Awareness Facebook group, which has got, oh my gosh, just thousands and thousands of women on it. And all these women, going backwards and forwards with tips and recommendations, surgeons and all of this. And, I just plugged up, okay, I'm in Norwich. Is there anyone local you would recommend? And my surgeon, Delia Musard, came up. She's an incredible woman. She actually heads up the reconstruction team at the Norfolk and Norwich Hospital. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna find out more about her. So I spoke to her PA. She went, right, I told her everything that's been going. She went, yes, we can book you in. But she's booked up until May. And I went, I can't wait that long. I said, I'm so poorly. So she's like, right. She said, okay, I'll see what we can do. But in the meantime, I'd gone to my GP, managed to get an emergency appointment with him, and he was incredible. He was actually on call, but he said, no, given everything that's going on, I need to see her. And he spent 40 minutes with me, and he was just so wonderful because he said, I have never, ever heard of breast implant illness. And so I'd spent some time writing up a 3-page document for him, just just going right back from when I first had the implants put in, to date, and gave that to him. He said, I will read this later. Tell me what's been going on. And I just completely fell to pieces. And he was so beautiful because he just sat and he listened to me. Occasionally he would ask me the odd question and gave me all the time that I needed, along with a box of tissues. Yeah. And he said, okay, to me, this sounds like it's an emergency. I want you to be seen within 2 to 3 weeks. And the question he asked, and I was like, can I please give you a hug? And he's like, what would you like me to do? And I thought, wow. And I said, this is what I would like you to do. I would like to be referred to this surgeon, and I told him all about Dahlia. And he said, okay. He said, he said, you can go through the NHS, given the situation. You can go through the NHS. He said, but he said, I have to be honest with you. He said, there is no guarantee you will get the surgeon you're asking for. And I said, okay. I said, I'm willing to pay private, because there are some surgeons, even though they're aware of breast implant illness, they are still refusing to take the capsules out. I needed guarantee that the surgeon I was going to be operated by was going to take, respect my wishes and take everything out that I was asking for. So I couldn't take that risk. I went through my consultations with Dahlia, and incredible woman. She listened to me. She went through everything. We discussed, the operation. I also discussed, because, it was like, I absolutely loved my boobs. I loved the shape. I just loved them, and I did say to her, consider having an uplift, because, you've got these breasts that you love, and then they're going to be taken away. And I thought, my goodness, what are they going to look like?
Yeah, because actually that's the question, isn't it? That if you've got the skin that's covering a larger breast, then if you take the larger breast away, are you just left with an empty bag, basically, of skin? And then what do they do with that?
I talked to her about a breast uplift. I'd done all the research, and she was very honest with me. She said, look, the thing with an uplift, she said, I'm more than happy to do that if that's the way you want to go. She said, but it's more time under anesthetic. There's going to be more scarring. She went through everything. And she was so lovely. She said, do you know what? She said, this is what I can do without having an uplift. She did also say she could do a little bit of hitching inside just to do what she needs to do. Yeah. And then she said, I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised after you've explanted. So I said to her, it was just how comfortable she made me feel. And I went, let's go with that. I said, no uplift. She said, you can come back. She said, if you're really that unhappy after a year or two, she said, you can come back and have an uplift. She said, but I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised. How she knew that? I'm meeting her in a couple of weeks, because I'm like, how did you know that? Because they are beautiful. I absolutely love them.
Well, that's experience, isn't it? That's then somebody you trust. They've done it a lot. They know what they're talking about on that side of things. So again, that's the other side of having had breast cancer, because of course it's been on one side, and I apparently have got an extra muscle on that side, which was interesting when they came to operate. And then people ask me, have you got one on the other side? And I'm like, I don't intend to find out. But as you say, at the time, it does actually lift it up, because they did work to match. But of course, 10 years on, so I'm slightly, if you see me without a bra or any underwear, you can see I'm slightly lopsided, because one is still very nicely up and the other one is a little bit down. But I don't care. I'm alive. That's it. I really don't care. I'm alive, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was the thing. I had my surgery on the Friday and got released on the Saturday, because and I had to come home with a draining, because what happened after my surgery, I was doing great. Dahlia came in to check on me, and my left breast was quite hard, and she's just like, I'm not comfortable with this. And I'm just like, it was such a blessing how it all worked, because all of a sudden she was the only one in the room, and all of a sudden my heart rate and my blood pressure just plummeted. And I was laying there, and I'm just like, I'm going to pass out. So she rushed the team in, and they stabilized me, got me on oxygen and stabilized me. And she said, okay, I'm taking you back in. The anesthesiologist was a little bit hesitant, because he's like, look, let's just give her a few more hours, because she's just come out of surgery. And she's like, no, I'm making this call. I'm taking her back in. So off I went back into surgery. But I was in such good spirits. I was just giggling with the team. I mean, my second team, it was such a brilliant.
That's not the after effects of the anaesthetic, because if you're anything like my husband, he is hysterical after he's had anaesthetic. Absolutely hysterical for 24 hours. Everything is hilarious to him.
I love that. But they were like, they went, oh, you're back again. I went, well, I had so much fun the last time. I thought I'd come back in to see you. Yeah, so went back in. So I had to have 2 drains, because what happens, because you've had implants, for so long, they're taken away, and obviously there's a cavity there. So the body goes into a little bit of shock. Oh my gosh, I need to fill the breast with fluid. So I had the drains in, and then one of them was taken out the next day before I was discharged. And the other one, my left one, which was the one, I've seen the video. I asked Dahlia to take a video of the operation. Not actually of the operation, but of my implants. They're on the table, and my left implant was, oh my gosh, it was destroyed. It was, when she took the capsule off, it just completely fell to pieces. So that was, where I had my hematoma. So she had to go, obviously that's why I went back in the second time, to remove the hematoma. So my drain had to stay in until the Tuesday, and she took the drain out and then checked my breasts. And she said to me, she was so lovely. She said to me, okay, she went, what do you think? And here's me looking at my breast from up here, from above. And I went, and the first words that came out of her mouth, I was like, I don't care, they're out. And she went, well, how do you feel about your smaller breasts? And I was like, I love them. And that was it. But I hadn't, obviously, looking from them from above. She didn't get me a mirror or anything, but anyway, got back into my compression bra, and then the next day dropped my children. Oh no, the children went to school, and then and I thought, I'm going to go and look at my breasts in the mirror. And I went in, and I just took a deep breath, and I looked at myself, and I'm like, okay, it doesn't matter. It doesn't, when you're like, it does not matter. I have my life. So I unzipped my compression bra and opened it, and I was like, hello. And I just looked at them and went, hello. And, obviously I'd only been out of surgery for 5 days, and they were sort of a bit squished and a bit all over the place. But I was just like, oh my gosh, thank you. And I'm like, I'm so sorry I've done this to you. And I'm like, but thank you for just hanging in there and just, walking through this journey with me. And then
what happened to the silicone they found then? Can they remove that from the lymph nodes? Because obviously, with breast cancer, I have my lymph nodes removed, or does that stay circulating in the body?
From what I know, I haven't done a lot of research on that right now. From what I know, it can migrate to other parts of the body, especially the organs. So I am working on removing that from the body. Whether I can or not, I don't know that right now. But I'm going to be working.
Okay. So they don't remove it. That's what I was getting at. That when they're doing the operation, it's not in a lymph node, and they can just take lymph nodes away with it.
Yeah, I will talk to my surgeon about that in a couple of weeks. Just further along, to see if that is something that would need to, my lymph nodes. I was hesitant messing around with my lymph nodes at that point. So I thought, just have the surgery, and then, because she was aware, because I did find a lump. It was in the August. I found a lump under my armpit. My left breast was sore, and I was just feeling around, and I found the lump, and I'm like, okay. And I didn't panic. I just thought, right, okay, I'm going through a lot right now. Phoned the
Yeah.
surgery, and they said, okay, we need to refer you to the breast clinic. And then that's when they said, chock a block full of silicone. And unfortunately, I found out a few hours after my surgery that I had the PIP implants, the ones that were recalled back in
Okay.
2000.
This is sort of 10
Yeah, they
years
were
ago. Yeah.
recalled back in 2010. So it was industrial grade silicone and not fit for medical use. I'm still on my journey.
Absolutely. And
I
you
feel
feel much better.
incredible. I have been this week, well, last week, I got very tired, but I think it's because I'm like, I feel amazing. I feel amazing. And then I'm like running around and doing things and meeting with people. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my goodness, okay, you've overdone it, because my body's still in recovery, and they've told me it's going to be a year before the internal healing is complete. So it's just a
Yeah.
lesson for me. I'm not Superwoman right now, even though my head, but in my
But I mean, we forget about major surgery these days. I mean, you're in and out so quickly. I mean, appendicitis, you're kind of, if they take your appendix out, you're kind of in and out before you know it. Whereas years ago, you'd have been in there for weeks. And that's it. We can't see what's going on the
yes,
inside in terms of healing. So
yeah,
exactly the same, when operated on the outside, you look great. But it is, as they said, it's very tender tissue as well, that it takes time to heal. Did they run tests for you? Because I know you, when I first spoke to you, you were waiting for some
they
results of some
did run
tests.
tests for me, because there is a very rare form of cancer that's specifically linked to breast implants. It's a type of lymphoma, and like it can be deadly.
Yeah.
So when
Yeah.
I was first opened up, Dahlia syringed some yellow gunk away from my capsule, so everything was sent off for testing. And
Yeah.
I got my results back last week, and no signs of cancer. Everything looks fine. So I was just like, but
Fantastic.
there's me going, okay, well, what was it? What was that yellow stuff that you found? I'm like, tell me more, tell me more. Every morning, wearing my compression bra every morning, I'd wake up and go into the bathroom and just stand in the mirror, unzip my compression bra, and I'd be like, go, morning, girls, morning. You are looking beautiful today. And I swear that's why I'm recovering so quickly. And they look wonderful. I mean, they're not like they were obviously before I had my implants, but I'm just like, you girls are beautiful. You're absolutely beautiful. And you are healing wonderfully. And I love you. And this is what I say to them every morning.
But it's the same, isn't it? I mean, as you were, and then when you had your breast implants, again, it's getting used to what they
Yeah.
then look like, isn't it? And getting used to that,
Yeah.
and then you forget about it. And again, fashion dictates, which I think, when I see what some people are doing to themselves these days with bum implants and this implant and, breast implants are getting even bigger. And I just think, but this is just the fashion. If you go back to the 1920s and the flapper girls, everybody wanted to be flat chested,
Yeah.
or Mary Quant, even in
Yeah.
the 60s. It was all about that. I look with envy at some people in the summer thinking, you are so lucky that you don't have to wear a bra, and that you can, I mean, I suppose I could go without, but it wouldn't be comfortable, and you can wear the ribbon strapped outfits. And I just say, oh, that must be bliss on that side of things. So when you see it now, because this is about raising awareness, isn't it? It's about absolutely every woman, well, anybody going for an implant, is my view, should know the risk. Because I understand if people have had, breast cancer, have had mastectomies, and they're younger and they want to have the breasts, etc. But I think it's about making sure every single person is fully informed of what could happen. If they want to ignore that information or think that it's worth the risk, because often with, as you know, with breast cancer, they can do reconstruction
Yes.
straight away. And it's really, for me, making sure that every single person who goes for something like this knows the the implications of it. And I think when we were just chatting, you made the point about if you can afford to have the implants put in, that's one thing. But actually, you should also make sure that you have enough money to have them removed. Because I think you said some people react quite badly and then actually have to go and have them removed. And there's a cost to that.
There is one woman I've come across. She had implants put in years ago, and within a couple of months she started having some really bad symptoms. 6 months later she had them taken out and has now made a full recovery. But there are women, their stories, I mean, I'm like, goodness me, I thought I went through stuff. And these women, and it's heartbreaking that they've had breast implants and their symptoms are horrendous, and they do not have the money to have them taken away. And it's awful because, you know, I can relate to my symptoms, and they're, you know, as I said, there were days I just felt I was dying, and I just literally wanted just to curl up in a ball and put a blanket over me and just say, just wake me up, you know, when this is all done. But there's women that do not have the money to have them taken out. So for me, it's all about informed consent. Now, the Food and Drug Administration in the US have now recently put a black box warning on breast implants. They have known this information for many, many, many years. And when women have been speaking up about breast implant illness, they have squashed that information. Oh, we don't need you talking about that, and silenced these women. But now I think because the pressure has become so much, they have now put a black box warning on them, which is the highest caution you can put on any medical device, to say these can cause cancer. Unfortunately, the British government are refusing to put the same warning on breast implants in the UK. So I am, you know, me along with we're called breasties. Any women we meet along this journey are called breasties. I believe it's up to us women. And there's also some wonderful surgeons out there that will speak up about, you know, saying, no, breast implant illness is a thing, but it's all about informed consent, you know, and speaking up and educating. You know, to your point, there are still women that are going to go ahead with the surgery, but it's like, okay, just be aware of this is what can happen. Now, I went many, many years without, I really don't think I had, I mean, I might have had the odd symptom that may have been related to my implants, but otherwise I lived a healthy life, you know, very energetic, and all of that. And I was thinking, okay, I'm only going through this because they'd ruptured, but it's not just about them rupturing. It's about it's a foreign object, and it's silicone or saline, but even the saline implants are the bag that they're in is made out of silicone. But at the end of the day, it's not just silicone or saline in these implants. There's 40 plus toxic materials in them. There's carcinogenic materials. There are heavy metals. There are neurotoxins. I mean, this stuff should not be in the body. You know, and I did.
And then we're choosing to put it in. You know, I understand with people with a hip replacement, if it's metal or whatever, but actually we're choosing to do this to ourselves. And as you say, it's not just the silicone in the bag, so they don't have to be ruptured. Again, I've come across women, they haven't had any ruptures or anything, it hasn't been a PIP implant, but the bags themselves start to slowly degrade and leak, if you like. As you're just saying, it's the bag itself that's also then impacting on the body and around the body. You know, devil's advocate, you would then say, I feel sorry that these women are going through it, but on the other hand, then there is the call that the NHS, I know with the PIP implants, you know, it was the NHS that then, if you like, removed them. So there's the argument then goes on, but if they didn't, then they'd be paying for the cancer treatment, etc. later. But if there's a class action for me, so I'm arguing the other side, if there's a class action and women are now getting paid out, you know, large sums of money here, my view, knowing the state of the NHS, is that actually the NHS should also be paid for everybody they operated on. So if you're being given a chunk of money, then actually some of your money should go to the NHS, who then will have put back in another breast implant. And the same way, if you need to have it removed, it sounds very hard, but I know there'll be others who think like me, well, you did it to yourself in the first place. It's why should the NHS then, if you like, sort out the mess when somebody's been to Turkey or been to any other place? I don't know why I said Turkey, everybody seems to go there at the moment, but Bulgaria or wherever. If you're going to take that risk and go there, then actually it's not up to the NHS with the state that it's in to sort that out. And I think that's your important point, that you should have as much money saved to have them removed as you should. If you can afford to put them in, this is a real kind of black and white. If you can afford to put them in, then you should be able to afford to have them out should you have issues. And that's a very hard line, I know,
but it's taking
a lot of people
to your
see
point,
it like
it's taking responsibility to say, no, I'm going through with this. This is my choice. And yes, to your point, it's like, well, but the NHS shouldn't have to pick up the pieces.
Exactly. It's a catch-22. I'm not disagreeing, and I would hate that women are going through that, but that's where it comes down to being completely informed, isn't it? So that somebody can't say, I haven't been made aware of this. So that when you're agreeing to it, you sign the form that says, I'm well aware of breast implant illness, I'm well aware of the symptoms, I'm well aware of the risks, and I am taking full responsibility for that. So I don't blame anybody at the moment, and I think it's like anything, isn't it? They start testing it, it's only a few people. In the past, it was only extremely wealthy people that could have afforded breast implants, and of course it's only when it gets out to the masses, as you like, more and more people get it, that you start showing up the percentage of people who are suffering as a result of what they've put into their bodies.
And the thing is, but there's a lot of women that don't have any problems with them and no signs of breast implant illness. But as soon as you put, whether it's a new hip or breast implants or anything foreign to the body, your body your immune system is heightened, and you've always got that thing going on, and there's always that low level of inflammation.
That's right.
Now, I know, being, a well-being and lifestyle coach, I know inflammation in the body, a little bit's good, but when it's continual year after year after year, and maybe on top of that, you're not having, the best diet, there may be stress in your life, maybe drinking alcohol and things like this, just more inflammation on top of what your body's already, fighting, in a sense, this foreign object, that can, and a lot of the time, turns into disease, because it's just our body screaming at us to say, stop with this lifestyle, but to your point, absolutely, about taking responsibility for, I elected to have these. Now, they were recalled, but that's a question I have. Who in the UK government or the medical industry, British medical industry, who then allowed them? What research was done? Because I've watched documentaries where things get approved into the medical system, and they're just going on what the sales reps told them. And then who's spoken to the sales rep? It's the manufacturer. So, okay, well, this is the next best thing. Let's just push this through. And the sales rep, they're just doing their job. Okay, this is the next best thing, selling it to the doctors or the medical industry. So who in the medical industry over here has said, yeah, okay, have they done their own research? Because a lot of the research that's done on breast implants is done by the manufacturer. It's not done by a third party. And even the pharmaceutical industry, the same thing happens. They do their own testing, then they push out all these drugs. And it's like, no, hang on, we need a third party to do, independently, to do this research and come up with their own data. It's the corruption.
Absolutely. But that comes down to big money. That's what I was just going to say. There's corruption, isn't it? This comes down to big money. Who's making the money here, including consultants. And there are very good consultants, and there are others, as you say, who possibly don't know or don't wish to know, because if they were going to make women aware of this to that extent, how many of that percentage of women would then go, oh, well, maybe not. No, maybe I won't have them. And of course, the cosmetic industry makes a lot of money from this. And the more people that have it, the more people think, well, it's perfectly all right. You know, so-and-so's had it and so-and-so's had it. Yeah, I used to live in Weybridge and Surrey. Dare I say, I think if I went into the gym changing room there at the local gym, you know, a lot of women had their implants. And it used to make me think, oh my God. Personally, no, you know, but again, I think it's a bit like body dysmorphia. It's talking to the women before they have their implants. How many women are sent, if you like, for some psychological testing before their implants? No, you can just book an appointment, from what I gather, to a cosmetic surgeon and say, I want breast implants, and you know, away it goes. I think a classic case, celebrity, if you want to call her that, is Katie Price, isn't it? You know, nobody is looking at what is, well, from what you see in the press, but you just think, what are people looking at? Why would they do this? Because you think about the weight. You're a well-being coach as well, which another layer for you, really, wasn't it, coming up? But it's the pressure, as I know with guys who, you know, the physios and the osteos, but the weight on the back, you know, on your own back and your posture for years of carrying that sort of weight, that's not good either, you know. And you just think, yeah, who's making these decisions? Somebody's making a lot of money along the line, and that I agree with pharmaceuticals as well. And you do research that looks independent, Serena. And it was, I say, it's the one module I hated in my psychology degree, was having to do the research, but actually has taught me a lot, because then you look at who is funding the people who are doing the research. And when you go down a couple of levels, you suddenly find out that the research that says, oh, I don't know, you know, formula milk is as good as breast milk, when you dig really down, you find out that actually the person right down here funding it up are the people who make formula milk. And you think, how can that be independent then?
Yeah, so it's a big scam. Well, and it's just going back to, you know, the NHS picking, or maybe not picking up, you know, taking the responsibility for people, you know, implants or whatever, but also injectables, you know, fillers and what have you. You know, I mean, Botox, when you read about the ingredients, it's poison going into the body. And at some point, whether it's immediately or years down the line, it's going to have an impact on the body. So, you know, these people might start having inflammation problems. You know, it could be, I don't know, something to do neurologically, or fibromyalgia and things like this. I know one of my friends, she got fibromyalgia from her breast implants, you know, but now the NHS are having to pick up, you know, her bills, and she's in hospital a lot because she can be so unwell with it, you know. So it's, you know, and all these fillers, at what point are they going to be relying on the NHS, not even thinking, oh, this is a result of what I'm doing to my body, what I'm putting in my body, you know, but okay, I need to go to the doctor again. I need to, you know, I need this treatment. I need this because I'm feeling unwell, not linking it back to, okay, well.
But that's the medical profession as well, not linking it back in some ways, isn't it? I mean, there's so much research and there's so much of it now being done, and people who aren't even trained to do it. You know, when you see they're not medically qualified with the lip fillers, when they get the pouts, when they get the lumpiness, I just think, what are you doing? But that's me personally, you know, even down to that. It's, I even sometimes look, if you're taking it to the extremes, at the amount of people now with, you know, false nails, with acrylic nails stuck with glue onto an area, which is the cuticle area, which is a direct, straight into the body very easily entrance point, and thinking, I wonder what happens when that's covered up all the time with a glue. What's in that glue? What's in the acrylic nails that's then seeping? So I must admit, I have this inquiry mind that goes, wow, what are we doing? Maybe that's because I've had breast cancer and just think,
and actually there was an article out, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, about the, you know, when women go and have their gel nails and put under the ultraviolet light, they're now saying it is linked to certain cancers, that UV light. And it's just like, my goodness. But then, you know, it's toxic. There's most nail varnishes are
That's
toxic. So if
right.
you're having that done on a regular basis,
As well as everything else, the body is coping while you're young. As we all know, a body can cope much easier when you're younger, but it stores it up so that you get to the point years later, and people often won't then connect if they're no longer having the Botox or the fillers or the nails or whatever years later. Then they don't connect back their illness to could it be that. So I think there's a huge amount of research. So what happens when you see friends who are saying, which I'm sure you've still got, oh, I've, no, I'm fine. I'm going to go and have breast implants. And what do you want to scream from the rooftops?
Actually, there is one of my best friends. She has, she didn't use these words, but they're the super duper gummy, top of the range.
Yeah.
Her ex-husband spent a lot of money on these implants, and she knows everything that I've been through. And she said, oh yes, but I've got basically the super duper ones, top of the line. And my surgeon said, oh, they're fine. They can be in, you can keep them in for life. And I was like, no, is this my place? And as her friend, and I'm like, do you truly believe that? Do you truly believe that breast implants are meant to be in the body, especially with her surgeon saying for life, and she has health issues, joint pains and different other things going on. And, she had recurring UTIs for a period of time, which can be related to breast implants, but just she will not have any of it. So I'm like, no, this is her journey. But it is about, it's the education, because I've had a lot of, after the interview I did with Honor, a lot of women contacting me. And the main thing that came up, I'm worried what I'm going to look like afterwards. And I said to them, you have a choice. It's either your health, and these women are having symptoms and they're getting palmed off. One woman got put on HRT. Now she's at that age. Is it her implants, or is it, peri-menopause? It's, but she's got implants, and it's, what am I going to look like? And I'm like, well, you have a choice. It's, do you want your health back? And do you want to feel vibrant again, like you have done in the past? Or, do you want to look?
Do you want to live a full life? Do you want to have a healthy life?
Because that was one thing before the first time I looked at my breasts in the mirror, I said to myself, this is a non-negotiable. I don't care what they look like. This is a non-negotiable. I'm going to love them. And then I thought that little negative voice in my head was like, yeah, but you might hate them. And I was like, no, I am. And I stood firm against that negative voice in my head and said, no, this is a non-negotiable. And I absolutely loved them. But
isn't it funny how we kind of make them a different part of ourselves, if you know what I mean? Because I'm going to love them, but that for me as a coach comes down to, actually, I'm going to love myself no matter what. And I think that's the important thing. Am I going to love them like there's something different to the rest of me? And for me as a coach, that's about, no, it's about you loving yourself. And unfortunately, as we were talking earlier, it's the pressure from external, isn't it? Well, when I'm hearing 20-year-olds who are getting Botox because they've got a wrinkle, and I'm just like, what are you doing? I need to go and have Botox. And I think, wow, what's going on? And even at that age, they're going, I think I need to have some breast implants. And I'm, as you say, it's their journey, but I think it's about being fully informed and looking at, because of the pressures of social media now and all that's going on, and looking at, do I love myself? Because for me, there's an awful lot of people who don't actually love themselves, so they're going externally. I was reading about, I think, a guy who transitioned and now has transitioned back again, because he said, I realized from a young age it was about loving myself, and I was looking for validation from somewhere else.
And that was me looking externally, because I didn't know how to love myself back then. And this is why, when I've had conversations with people that, and actually my friend who's got the super duper implants, and she cried when I told her this. She came to visit me, I don't know, a week after I'd had surgery. And I said to her, this was more than getting rid of my implants. This was shedding that need to feel loved by anyone else, and just
Mm.
all that pressure of society. That just went. I said, I have never had so much love for myself. I've never, ever had that before in my life. And really just stood into who I am as a woman to say, this is
Mm.
me. This is me. I love myself as I am. I think a lot of it comes from my upbringing, and just how my family can be.
Mm.
They laugh at me about how I live my life, more holistically. They think I'm absolutely nuts. And
Mm.
we clash in that department. I'm just like, hey, just let me be who I am. But they cannot stand it. And it's been awful. That journey's been awful for me. But for me to now empower myself as an almost 50-year-old woman to say, this is who I am. I love my family dearly, but whatever shit you flung at me in the past, no more. I put a firm boundary up. At the end of last year, I
Mm.
put that firm boundary up to say no more in a love and compassionate way, you know, no nastiness whatsoever around that, but to say, no, this is me. I am accepting me for who I am. And if you or anybody else doesn't like that, that's your problem. That's not
Tough.
my problem. I have carried that burden for so
Absolutely.
many years, and living up to my family's and society's expectations. And I'm like, that's bonkers. When you finally, the light bulb
Yes,
goes on.
isn't it?
And I'm
It's
like, that's
fantastic.
bonkers. What the heck did I waste all that time and energy and tears on? I am not playing this game anymore.
You are so going to enjoy
Oh,
the rest of your life, because that's where I am. I don't care about what society thinks like that. And also with you saying being a well-being coach as well, it's always interesting. I think when you come across people, you've got breast implants, and you're telling people, no, don't put this in your body, and don't eat this, and don't eat sugar, and
yeah.
don't and blah, blah, blah. And actually I would look and go, well, hang on a minute, who are you to now tell me not to do
Yeah.
this or put this in my body or put that in my body? But you've got breast implants in your body.
Yes.
I haven't. So there's that side as well, isn't it? When you're talking about advising
Yeah.
people on health and well-being and what they should and shouldn't do, to then actually that's not really very
Yeah.
authentic for
And
me
that's, yes. Well,
as an individual.
when I found out about breast implant illness, and I went through, a period of time thinking, oh my goodness, I cannot go public with this. Not because I'm like, I
Mm.
talk to your point about health and well-being and lifestyle and that, forgetting, before I knew what was going on, forgetting that I'd even got implants. I know it sounds ridiculous, but they were just like there. I
No,
wasn't looking in
no,
my
to
mirror every
understand.
day
Yeah.
going, oh yes, I've got breast implants. I was just getting on with my day. um but I thought, I cannot talk about this. Oh my goodness, I'm an imposter. So I went through all of those emotions, and
Love
then
that.
all of a sudden I just pulled myself up, and I thought, this has got nothing to do with you. This is part of your journey, and yes, you are experiencing all of these horrendous symptoms. This has got nothing to do with you. This is about raising awareness, and this is about you totally stepping out of your comfort zone to say, yes, I am a wellbeing and lifestyle coach, and yes, I did have implants, but this is what I've learned. I wasn't a health and
Yes,
a well-being coach back in the day, and but I was like, gosh,
exactly.
I have to step out. I have to get really uncomfortable in this situation and hold my hands up and say, yeah, because this is my journey, and it's for me to share this, to inform whoever wants to have implants, and even the Botox and all of that, but to say, empower yourself. You need to learn as
Mm.
much as you can about yourself, and just love yourself just
Mm.
as you are. And that has been my journey. The pain I have been through, the emotional pain I've been through in my life, just trying so desperately hard to fix myself, to fit in, and just to
Mm-hmm.
be, just to be loved. And oh my goodness. And I'm like, and I look back now and I'm thinking, flipping heck, that was exhausting. That was
What a waste of
exhausting. I am not doing that anymore. But for me to set that example for my children, and to say, this is who
Exactly.
you are. There's some people that are going to love you. There's some people that are going to go, oh no, you're not my type of person. But that's okay.
Mhm. Exactly. You don't want the whole world
No,
to love you. At least I don't. There's lots of people in the world I don't want to like me because I wouldn't
I
want to have
know.
anything to do with them. But to your point, I think it's made you even more of a coach that I would come to for well-being, because you have stepped out, because you are being honest, because you are now being really authentic, because you understand that
Yeah.
side as well. So I would feel comfortable coming to you. Others might not, because if they've got breast implants themselves, they might worry about what you're thinking. But what you're doing, if you save just one person the pain, one female or male, if they've got implants, if you save one person's life, if you save one person from having cancer, you are the pebble in the pond, Serena, and I
Thank you.
applaud you for it. You are that pebble that will never see many of those ripples that it affects, because somebody will listen to this or have heard the Insta Live you did with Honor, and they will then tell somebody else, who tells somebody else, who tells somebody else. You have no idea where those ripples are going to go. So I absolutely applaud you for coming out and saying, this is my story, and more women need to know this. So if women want to know more, finally, where do they go? Can they find you? Where would you point them in terms of
I mean, the best thing to
research?
do, because I am still in the early stages of learning more and more about breast implant illness, and just generally the dangers of breast implants, I'm on Instagram, A Delicious New You, but also
Yeah,
just research breast implant illness. And it's
it's frightening,
it
isn't it, when you
is,
do?
and I was very good. I was very proud of myself, actually, because usually I go down the rabbit hole and like, right, I need to know everything. But I was just drip feeding myself in a way, because I thought, I do not want to overwhelm myself with all this information, and there's some stories out there, and heartbreaking stories. And I thought, no, okay, that's enough for right now, and I take what I needed for myself during my journey, and
Right. It's what can I control,
yeah,
what can't I control? And what I can control is I can control
yeah,
my own input of what
yes.
I'm taking in, realizing what my limits are, and then I can
Hmm.
make informed decisions. Because this is not about scaring anybody who's got breast implants. It's about get yourself informed and make an
Yes.
informed decision. You mentioned a breast implant awareness group, I
There's
think you
a
said. Was
breast
it on
implant
Facebook?
illness awareness group on Facebook. Yes, there's an American one and there's also a UK one. Lots of women, lovely forum, very supportive. And there are surgeons around the country that have that will support you with breast implant illness. They recognise it, and that's as well. It's not, for me, it's not just about educating people, who have implants or thinking about it. It's also educating the medical industry, because like my doctor, incredible man, but he'd never heard of breast implant illness. um,
But they're called
yeah,
GPs for a reason, aren't they? They're general practitioners. As a very good friend of mine who is a doctor said, we're basically the
yeah,
signposters. We take you and then we send you off to where we need to know. But of course, this stuff is so new for so
yes.
many doctors. It wasn't there when they trained,
Mhm.
even 10 years ago. And trying to keep up with everything. I know I used to sit on a GP's, patient committee or whatever, and everybody on there was always screaming about the dementia, or they were screaming about this, or why don't you know this, or why don't you know that. My friend said there is so much that actually we couldn't possibly keep up to date with everything that's going on. So you're right, I think it's about also informing the
Mm.
medical profession. And I know when I had my breast cancer, I wrote a book, and I thought out of kindness I would send it to my consultant, because he's mentioned in it a lot, and never expecting him to read it. And he's been a consultant for many years. And he then sent me back a lovely, I think it was about a
Wow.
3-page letter, just saying, this is really interesting to see it from a patient's perspective of how actually we just see this as routine, and we don't
Yeah.
listen enough. We don't respect the patient enough. It was an amazing letter. And he sort of said, thank you for educating me. I can now educate my team, the registrars, the SHOs, the HOs, the anaesthetists, etc. I can't thank you enough. We will, if it's okay with you, I'd love to come back and do another podcast, because I'm sure there'll be loads of questions coming in. So they can find you on Instagram at a delicious new
new you.
Yeah.
But I'm a delicious
a
new
delicious
me now.
new you.
That was it.
Of course, you absolutely
toxic
are.
bags and really finding myself. Finally, Jill. This is my 50th birthday present to myself.
It makes me happy. Happy 50th birthday present. Serena, thank you so much for joining me today. Well, I don't know about you, but I've certainly learnt a lot on this podcast from talking to Serena. I personally was aware of breast implant illness, even though obviously I don't have implants, but I had no idea that it was so vast, causing so many women so many problems, and actually a lot of people totally unaware, including in the medical profession, of the problems that implants are creating for women, and that it can get lost in amongst everything else at a certain age. I think it was amazing that Serena has actually shared her story, telling people her story and wanting to get the information out there. Because if it just helps one other woman, then it's absolutely worthwhile doing. So this might not have been relevant to you as a podcast, but who knows, in the future, you might come across a friend, a family member, somebody that you know that is suffering and has been undiagnosed. And you might be able to suggest, if they have got implants, that it is breast implant illness. This podcast was done to actually inform women rather than frighten or scare or panic women. If it has made you think about something and you are concerned, then please go make an appointment with your own medical professional. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I'm GillHB-Bush and I've been talking to Serena Scroggins all about breast implant illness. If you would like to make sure you get every single one of my episodes, then please go to GillHB and Friends and subscribe. Again, thank you for listening to this one, and here's to the next one.